Tasmania is having their state election tomorrow, but they had a federal election two months ago, and their seats are exactly the same. So this video will look at what happens if the state election is similar to the federal election. This video will have two parts. It will have the House of Representatives and it'll have the Senate, because those are two different results in both in all of the seats. And it will show and mainly, like, looking at this, it looks like a Labour victory right away. Of course, Labour won in a landslide in the election. I will also look at what differences there are between the state and the federation, especially with their Liberal parties. The Liberal Party is much stronger in the state election, and so I'll probably put in my own prediction of their, even including that one. So the no quota winner seat in Bass, I believe, is likely to go to the Liberals, because they are 6% off of their third quota, which can be given by the half a percentage of the Greens, because Liberals and One Nation are similarly at a similar position where they're 6% off. If the Greens give half their percent, Labour gives 2%, and then the independents give their sort of percentages, then it's very likely that the Liberals will end up with an extra seat. However, it is possible that these sort of majors go directly to independents, and then Liberals end up moving their vote to the independents. I don't really see Jordan Potter from One Nation winning it all, because they're sort of total with the ones that I've put down as Shooter Farm Fishers as well. The other right-wing miners has been sort of down. So I believe from these numbers, it's looking very possible that I'll give it to an independent. Yeah, an independent will win the seat of Bass. I am trying to be nice to Labour in this one, because this is probably one of their best sort of situations that could happen. The federal election happens in the state. And this is what Dean Winters kind of wanted out of this election, is to make it look like the federal election. Braddon has 2 seats without a quota winner. But one of them is totaled, where a bunch of the right-wing miners total around 12% of the vote, and so I believe that it's very possible that the Nationals from that I'm substituting One Nation in for will get that sort of first seat, and then the second seat, from what I'm seeing, is likely to be either independent or Green, based on the situation. Of course, Greens will get the 2% of Labour of those, but it's likely that this independent here has a very sort of similar margin, but it also has this giant 5% from the Liberal Party that's able to sort of, that is not doing that well. And so it's likely that, from what I'm seeing, and obviously giving a lot to Labour as well, of course, Dean Winters doesn't want to have a coalition with the Greens, and so thus I'd probably give it to an independent from like a best case scenario sort of point of view from Dean Winters. Now, Clark is pretty simple. They only have 1 seat left, and that is with a very and the independent, which is Andrew Wilkie, which is very popular in that seat, is it would be at 1%. Close to there, so I'd be pretty confident in a complete sweep of like the sort of 4 seats that Andrew Wilkie needs. Andrew Wilkie will get, it seems. Auckland, similarly, from the federal election, their Greens are at 10.5%, but their Labour is similarly doing quite well with some extras, with 2%, with 1.5% extra from the 37.5% quota, which will likely feed into the Greens in this situation. And so my guess is, from their quotas, the Greens is likely to get that final seat. This is not looking good for the Liberals in Franklin either. But yeah, again, Labor hasn't been winning any of the preference seats because they've just hit 3% of the three quarters issue in most of their seats, and then in Clark, it's really unrealistic that Clark ends up going independent like it does in the federal. So it's and that's why I'm doing a Senate one as well. That sort of does something similar to this. But yeah, here's now, so with Lyons, it looks very possible with a very strong sort of Rebecca White vote in Lyons that from a sort of federal to state prediction, I think that they'll probably get one of the remaining seats. Of course, they have very strong minor parties in these sort of seats with totaling very, very high numbers of percentages, and that will probably stack over their One Nation and get those sort of votes, and then the remaining of those and the Liberals' votes will likely go to Labour over the Greens, and so will Angela Offord's. So I think it's very possible to see in Lyons a Labour gain and an SSF gain in this area as well. So this position, I'll put a thing over here, is looking very beneficial for Labour, who's at 14 seats, but with 8 independents. They really get to pick and choose who their government is, and if they ever want to make a coalition with the Greens, the Greens are pretty smattered at 3 seats, which will give Labour a bit of leverage if they want to do that. But they probably won't. It's even possible that Labour might grab one of the Shooters, Farmers and Fishers and then grab 3 out of the 8 independents, depending on the situation. If like Dean Winters goes right of the Liberal Party and they do like a party switch, as Anglo Election Insights sort of talked about, that could very much happen with with 8 sort of independents doing quite strong for Dean. This is what the Senate map looks like, and it has a lot to be desired. A lot of places with no quota winners, and obviously the place itself isn't going so well, with no independents going into government because most of the parties are the major parties in the Senate there, except for, of course, One Nation whatnot, who got like pretty darn close. And then Lambie got it was like pretty decent, but she didn't get any quotas in any of the seats. She sort of relied on other parties' preferences in the real election, and it's likely that independents will rely on preferences in this one if they want to get anyone elected at all. But yeah, and then as well as that, a really huge Green Party in the Senate as well. Of course, in the Senate, in the federal election, they got pretty darn close to the Liberal Party. And of course, this is quite well reflected by this map here, where the Greens have got 6 seats, even without counting the places where they haven't got any quota winners yet, in which their vote even might increase from what they have. And yeah, this looks like it's very possible where they end up with like no government, even though there's no quota winners yet. Where there's obviously all of the parties in theory could make a majority if they win all of the swing seats. 6 plus 12 is 18, 10 plus 12 is 22, and 7 plus 12 is 19. So it's relatively simple, but yeah, this is and of course this in general, I made it from these kinds of scripts, so I'm probably spend a lot more time kind of drawing through each of them, and then afterwards I'm explaining what's happening rather than beforehand. So in Bass, it is very likely, from what I've seen, that Labour will win a seat from the large amount of from it being very close to winning the third seat in the quotas, and the next one that's unlikely to do well being the Jackie Lambie, which would count as an independent here, as well as that the sort of large grouping of right-wing miners are likely to pick off a seat in Bass if the Senate election comes into the national one, because they have such a strong they have a strong vote, but I don't think they have as strong as One Nation, because One Nation has like a relatively large 5.5%, but the Shooters, Farmers, Fishers and the Trumpet Patriots total around 4%. Or 5 point. Okay, yeah, no, I was right the first time. Yeah, the other right wing miners are able to sort of win a seat there. Quotas from winning from One Nation preferences, so they're able to sort of grab those. Now, none of the major parties are able to get an extra seat in Braddon from these numbers. Labour is slightly short, and the Liberals were really well short. So I ended up giving one of the seats to Shooters, Farmers and Fishers, and the other to to the Independents, which were very close to winning that on their own as well. But yeah, still very not so good for the major parties in those regions where they were sort of, they still got a majority, but not the major parties still won a majority, but it was a little tough in that situation. So for Clark, Labour was really close to its third quota, so I'll give them their third quota. But the second seat for the Liberals were kind of very much up in the air. So because it was all sort of split between the Liberals, One Nation, and some of the right-wing miners that were sort of the majority of that last last few voters to be counted in that situation. And so I think they'd probably end up going to their sort of mean voter, which would be the One Nation, their sort of average voter in that one. And so it's likely that Labour will win the actual average voter in this one by a lot of winning from their preferences in this situation. And so in this scenario, Labour is capable of holding the seat of Clark by a very decent margin. So even though Franklin looks the worst in the Senate race, it was very heavy for both the Greens, Labour, and the Liberal in the sort of final preferences. From what I've been seeing, of course, the Greens were really close to winning already from some of the minor parties, the Animal Justice Party, the UBI Party, and the Cannabis Party, the Hemp Party, were able to grant them a second seat. With Labour, they were already at like 37%, but they didn't have that 0.5 that they probably could have gotten away with. That will probably come to them with like One Nation preferences or whatever, with like straggling One Nation preferences there. And the Liberals will likely gain the extra seat from the fact that the rest of the votes are from right-wing miners. They'll just sort of funnel towards them, even though they have like only 20% of the vote in Franklin. So from the no quota winners, it's likely in this situation to give in the seat of Lyons. I have one Labour from there, one Liberal, and I have Lambie as well. The Greens vote kind of stuck with Lambie because they couldn't go because Labour was so close to winning that all the Labour preferences went to Lambie after they ended up fulfilling theirs an extra from Greens preferences. And then none of the right-wing miners were able to get a very strong foothold into Lyons from the Senate election data. But yeah, here's what the final map looks like. It's got a very strong Labour presence, but Labour is completely unable to form government. It's even with two independents would come to 16 seats. The closest it could get to forming a government would be to form a government with the Greens, but he says that's completely off of the table. Dean Winters. In this situation, it'd be very possible for Labour and the Liberals to create the first grand coalition government where the Liberals and Labour make a singular government to then represent all of Tasmania rather than just left or right or whatever. And so thus the situation here looks very, very closely sort of it looks like a disaster. If the Senate results are right in the Tasmania situation, it would be a disaster. So yeah, that's it. If you like the video, then you can feel free to go and I mean you can do whatever you want. Here's Tasmania disappearing and reappearing. Thing is with this map, you can zoom out as much as you want. So sometimes I have just like, oops, and now the map is ruined. I will share it with myself, download, and then and then that generally fixes the map. But yeah. I'll edit this and send this up. See you tomorrow. I'll probably do another Tasmania election video.